Today I'm going to make some fermented dill pickles. And there are only a few things that we need for this. First of all, we have to have brine. So what you do is you take a cup of water, and for every cup of water, you put in 1.5 teaspoons of coarse salt. And I use pink Himalayan sea salt. So I have 3 cups of water in this jar. And I put in what would be equivalent of 1.5 teaspoons per cup, which is 1.5 tablespoons. And you'll shake it around to get it into solution. Here's what it looks like when you first put it in. So you can see that there is the salt on the bottom. The brining is going to help us to get the part of the classic flavor that we think of in dill pickles. So the second thing that we need is cucumbers. I have cucumbers that have been in ice water for 30 minutes. The reason that you put pickles or the cucumbers in the ice water is to make sure that they are fully hydrated for when you put them in your container. Okay, so we've got our brine, we've got our cucumbers. Next thing we need is garlic. And typically I use fresh garlic, and I put about 6 cloves in because I like garlic. Unfortunately, there is none at the store right now. There's a little bit of a shortage. So I'm using some garlic that is chopped. And I am going to use a teaspoon, and I am going to put in 3 teaspoons of garlic. Again, I like my dill pickles very, very garlicky and very dill flavored. So the next thing we need, dill. So I got some fresh dill at the store. I rinsed it off, and all I'm going to do is sit it in the bottom of this container. Okay, so I have a glass container that has my garlic in the bottom. It has my dill, and I'm going to put a little bit of my cucumbers in and a little bit of the brine. I'm going to put a little bit of the brine into this first. So you can see I've got this. I'm going to put a little bit of the brine in. And the reason I'm going to do that is to make sure that I can get a good mix of that garlic and that dill. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cucumbers. I'm going to tip this sideways, and I'm going to start putting my cucumbers in this. And these are smaller pickling cucumbers. These are not the large cucumbers that you would normally use or normally chop up. So you can see I'm just laying these in here at a nice angle so that I can get as many in as possible. Now, notice that I'm not using a canning jar for this. And the reason that, that one's a little bit big, the reason that I am not using a canning jar is I'm not going to sterilize these. So I'm not going to boil them. Instead, this is going to be fully fermented, meaning that they will still have bacteria growing in them when I go to eat them. And fermented foods are actually really nice for your gut, really nice for your immune system. Fermented foods have been used for millennia in different countries throughout the world. Kimchi is fermented. We have sauerkraut, which is fermented. And so instead of sterilizing this, I'm going to use whatever the bacteria, the yeast that is naturally on these. I did give these a quick wash, but I do all of this by hand. I don't worry about anything getting in there. So I'm going to finish by pouring the rest of the brine over the top. And these are not quite completely covered. So I'm going to add a little bit more of my second jar of brine that I did, that I showed you what the salt looked like in the bottom. All right. So I had these guys completely covered in the brine, the salt water. Okay, that's what brine means, is salt water. So let me show you what that looks like. So you can see that they are completely covered with that brine. All right, now that we've got the cucumbers in the jar, we can cover them in two ways. I can just use this glass lid, which I'm going to wait until they're done fermenting for that when I put them in the refrigerator. Instead, I'm going to use a nice piece of thin cloth, which is the same cloth that I use when I make kombucha. And I'm simply going to tie that around the edge so that it actually is going to hold on to the top. What this does is this is going to allow air in, because for fermentation, we want the bacteria, the yeast that is in there to be able to breathe. And so this allows it to breathe. So what I've done is I've simply tied it on top. Now I'm going to store this on the countertop for in about a week, week and a half, probably a week. I will open it up. I will look at it. And so to look at it, I'll just lift up an edge like this. See how bubbly it is. And if it looks like it's bubbly, I'll take off the top and I will taste one of the cucumbers that is now turned into a pickle. When it gets to the zinginess that I want for my dill pickles, I will put that glass lid on them. I'll put them into my refrigerator and I am done. So again, I am not going to sterilize these. I'm not going to put these to boil like you typically think of with canning, because I'm not canning these. Instead, what I'm doing is I am fermenting these. So the dill, the garlic, this will give it the flavor that I want. Another thing that you could add, if you so desire, is a pepper. Every once in a while, I will add a little serrano pepper or a little hot Thai pepper, just to give it a little bit more bite and spice to it. But that's completely a personal thing. I love dill pickles. They are my favorite. So enjoy, and we'll see you back here for another recipe.